A jar of sauerkraut at the store costs $4.50. 16 ounces. That's it. Cabbage, water, salt, maybe a little vinegar to make it taste sour fast instead of the slow way. I picked one up last week just to check the price again because I couldn't believe it went up. $4.50 for something that costs me about 30 cents to make at home. 30 cents. Same jar size. And mine doesn't have a single ingredient I can't pronounce, and it doesn't have a best buy date stamped on some machine 3 states away. There's a video going around right now with millions of views showing a woman fermenting kraut in 3 days using a fizzy starter packet from the internet. 3 days. My grandmother would have laughed her apron off at that one. Real kraut doesn't rush. It takes its sweet time, and that's exactly why it's good for you. The bacteria that make sauerkraut sour and crunchy and good for your stomach need weeks, not days, to really do their work. You can rush a lot of things in a kitchen. This isn't one of them. Now here's the thing about that trend, and I want to be fair about it. It's not wrong exactly. You can speed up fermenting with store-bought starters and warm little gadgets that promise results fast. I won't stand here and tell you it never works, because it does, a little. But it skips the part that actually matters most. It skips the waiting. And the waiting is where all the good stuff happens. The stuff that makes real sauerkraut different from anything sitting in a plastic tub at the grocery store. So let me ask you something. When's the last time you made something with just 2 ingredients? Put it on a shelf and let time do the rest of the cooking for you. Not a slow cooker, not an oven timer. Just time itself, working while you sleep, while you go to work, while you forget about it for a few days and come back to check. My name is Naomi, and I cook the old way, out of a farmhouse kitchen with a wood stove that's older than my mother. We don't rush much around here. Things get done when they're ready, not when the clock says they should be. My grandmother Ruth learned to make sauerkraut when she was 9 years old, standing on a wooden stool so she could reach over the top of a big stone crock. Her own mother taught her, hands over hands, showing her exactly how hard to squeeze the cabbage and exactly how it should feel when it was ready. 40 years later, she taught me the very same way, in the very same kitchen, using a crock that's been in our family longer than any of us can remember. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to turn 1 head of cabbage and a spoonful of salt into real, tangy, crunchy sauerkraut, sitting right there on your own kitchen counter. No starter packets, no vinegar, no special equipment, no trip to the store at all once you've got your cabbage. If you want the exact salt ratios written down in one place so you never have to stand there guessing with a measuring spoon in your hand, I've got them all laid out in my little kitchen notebook, and I'll leave that where you can find it. Let's talk about why this even works, because honestly, it sounds almost too simple to be true. How can 2 ingredients turn into something so different from what you started with? Cabbage has natural bacteria living right on its leaves already, out in the field, before it ever comes near your kitchen. You don't add anything special to make that happen. It's just there, waiting. When you add salt to shredded cabbage and start squeezing it with your hands, the salt pulls water out of the leaves. That water becomes a brine, which is just a fancy word for salty liquid. That brine does 2 jobs at once. It keeps out the bad bacteria, the kind that would spoil your food and make you sick. But at the same time, it lets the good bacteria keep right on working, safe and happy in that salty little pool. Scientists call this whole process lacto-fermentation. That's a big word, but it just means good bacteria eat the natural sugar sitting inside the cabbage, and as they eat, they turn that sugar into something called lactic acid. That's the exact same sour taste you get in a good dill pickle or in plain yogurt before anybody adds sugar to it. That sourness isn't just there for flavor either. It's also part of why sauerkraut is good for your gut, because those same bacteria keep multiplying the whole time the jar sits there quietly on your shelf. And a lot of those bacteria are the same kind your stomach likes having around. Here's how you do it yourself, start to finish, step by step. Start with one good head of cabbage, about 3 pounds, which is roughly the size of a small bowling ball. Green cabbage works best for this. Look for one that feels tight and heavy for its size, not loose or light, because a light head usually means it's been sitting around too long. Pull off the outer leaves if they look bruised, torn, or dirty, but don't throw all of them away just yet. You're going to want to save one whole leaf for later, so set it aside on the counter. Cut the cabbage into quarters right through the core, then cut out that hard white core from each piece and toss it in the compost. It's too tough to eat this way. Now slice the rest of the cabbage thin, about as thin as a matchstick, maybe even thinner if your knife allows it. You want the shreds thin enough that they wilt down easy once the salt hits them. Thick chunks take much longer to break down and won't ferment evenly. Put all that shredded cabbage into a big mixing bowl, the biggest one you own, because it needs room to move around while you work it. For every pound of cabbage, add about 3/4 of a tablespoon of salt. Plain salt, nothing with iodine added, because iodine can slow down or even stop the fermenting process, and nothing with anti-caking agents either, since those can cloud up your brine. If you're using table salt versus a coarser salt like kosher, the measurement can shift a little, so when in doubt, weigh your cabbage and use my notebook's exact ratios instead of guessing by eye. Now here's the part that takes some real elbow grease, and honestly, it's my favorite part. Squeeze and massage the cabbage with clean hands for about 10 minutes straight. Your arms will feel it by the end, especially your forearms, kind of like you've been kneading bread dough. You're not just mixing the salt in evenly. You're actually breaking down the cabbage's cell walls with your own hands, forcing the water trapped inside those cells to come out and pool at the bottom of the bowl. Think of it like wringing out a wet towel, except you're doing it a little at a time, over and over until the whole bowl gives up its water. You'll know you've done enough massaging when the cabbage feels limp instead of crisp, almost wet to the touch, like it's sweating in your hands. There should be a good pool of liquid sitting in the bottom of the bowl by the time you're done, maybe a ½ inch deep or more, depending on how juicy your cabbage was to start. If you squeeze a handful and liquid runs out easily between your fingers, you're there. If it still feels dry and springs back, keep going another few minutes. Once the cabbage is properly wilted and juicy, it's time to pack it into your jar. Use a clean glass jar. A quart size works well for one head of cabbage, though you might need 2 jars depending on how big your cabbage was. Pack the shredded cabbage in tight, pressing down hard with your fist or the back of a wooden spoon as you go, layer by layer. You want to push out any air pockets hiding between the shreds, because trapped air can lead to spots of spoilage later on. Fill the jar most of the way, leaving some room at the top. Once the cabbage is packed in, pour that leftover brine from the bottom of your bowl right on top of it. This is important, so listen close. The cabbage needs to stay completely covered by that liquid the whole time it ferments, every single day, from now until it's done. Anything poking up above the brine line is exposed to air, and exposed cabbage is where mold likes to start growing. This is exactly why we saved that spare outer leaf earlier. Fold it up and tuck it right down on top of the shredded cabbage, tucking the edges in around the sides, like you're tucking a little blanket around a sleeping baby. That leaf holds everything else down under the brine, out of contact with the air above. If the liquid that came out during massaging doesn't quite cover the cabbage once it's packed, don't worry. That happens sometimes, especially with cabbage that was a little on the dry side to begin with. Just mix up a little extra brine on the side. 1 tablespoon of salt dissolved completely in 2 cups of water, stirred until you can't see any grains left, and pour that on top until the cabbage disappears beneath the liquid. Leave about 1 inch of empty space at the very top of your jar, below the rim. The cabbage is going to bubble up and push against that space as it ferments over the coming days, and you don't want brine overflowing all over your counter. Cover the jar loosely, not tight and sealed. A clean cotton cloth held on with a rubber band works just fine, or you can rest a lid on top without screwing it down all the way. The jar needs to breathe. As the fermenting happens, it releases gas, and that gas needs somewhere to go. Seal it up airtight, and you risk a jar that pushes its own lid off, or worse, cracks from the pressure building up inside. Now set that jar somewhere cool, out of direct sunlight, somewhere the temperature holds steady around 65 to 75 degrees. That's about like a basement, a cool pantry shelf, or a corner of the kitchen that never gets hit by afternoon sun and never gets too warm from the stove. Too warm, and the fermenting happens too fast, giving you a mushy, less flavorful kraut. Too cold, and it barely happens at all. Then you wait. And this is the part nobody really wants to hear, but it's the whole secret sitting right here in plain sight. Real sauerkraut needs at least 2 weeks to become what it's supposed to be. Some folks, myself included some seasons, let it go 4 weeks, even 6 weeks, for a stronger, tangier bite that really wakes up your taste buds. There's no rushing this part. The bacteria work at their own pace, same as they always have, same as they did for my grandmother and her mother before her. Every day or two while it sits, check on it. Press the cabbage back down under the brine with a clean spoon if any of it has floated up, because it will try to float, especially in the first week. Make sure it's still fully covered every single time you check. You might notice little bubbles rising up through the liquid when you look closely, small and steady, almost like a very slow simmer. That's completely normal. That's the fermenting doing exactly what it's supposed to do. The bacteria releasing gas as they eat and multiply down there in the jar. You might also see a thin white film forming on the surface of the brine sometimes, especially after the first week or so. That's usually just a harmless yeast called calm yeast, and it's not dangerous, just not especially pretty. Skim it right off the top with a spoon and keep going like nothing happened. But, and this part matters a lot, if you ever see fuzzy mold growing on top, especially green or black and clearly fuzzy like the mold you'd see on old bread, that whole batch is done for. It needs to go straight into the compost, not anywhere near your mouth. That kind of mold means air got to the cabbage and something went wrong along the way, usually because the cabbage wasn't kept fully submerged under the brine. Start tasting your kraut around day 7. At that point, it'll mostly taste like salty cabbage still, with just a hint of tang starting to show up underneath. By day 10 or 12, you'll start to really notice that sour flavor creeping in, getting stronger with each passing day. Keep tasting every few days after that, using a clean spoon each time until it hits the level of sourness that tastes right to you and your family. Everybody's taste runs a little different here. Some people like it mild and just barely tangy. Others want it sharp enough to make your cheeks pull in a little. There's no wrong answer, just your answer. Once it tastes the way you want it, move the whole jar to the refrigerator. The cold slows the fermenting way down, almost all the way to a stop, though it never fully stops completely. From there, it'll keep safely in your fridge for months, slowly getting a little more sour the longer it sits, which some families actually prefer, letting a jar age for months before they even open it. Let's talk about that resource I mentioned earlier, since a few of you have asked. My kitchen notebook has this exact recipe written out with precise weights and measurements, no guessing involved, plus 6 other traditional ferments my grandmother taught me over the years, things like pickled beets and fermented green beans that use this same basic method with a few small changes. It's not fancy, just plain handwritten pages I've filled up season after season, copied out clean for anyone who wants to follow along. I've made it free to anyone who wants to join the little kitchen community I run, and I'd love to have you there with the rest of us. Let's talk money for a second, because that's really where this whole habit started for me years ago. A jar of store-bought sauerkraut, the standard 16-ounce size, runs about $4.50 right now, and I've watched that price creep up steadily over the past couple years. That exact same jar size, made right here at home, costs me roughly 30 cents once you count the cost of the cabbage and the pinch of salt that goes into it. 30 cents against $4.50. If your family eats sauerkraut even once a week, maybe alongside sausages or on a sandwich, that adds up to over $200 a year, gone, spent on something you could easily make yourself with about 15 minutes of actual hands-on work. 15 minutes. That's it. You're not standing over a hot stove stirring anything. You're not babysitting a pot for hours. You're just slicing, salting, squeezing, and packing a jar. And then you're walking away and letting time and a few billion tiny bacteria do the rest of the cooking for you, for free, using nothing but what's already living on that cabbage. So here's the whole method again. Put together simple, one more time before we wrap up. 1 head of cabbage, sliced thin as a matchstick. Salt, massaged in by hand for about 10 minutes until the cabbage sweats out its own brine, packed tight into a jar, fully covered by that brine at all times, weighted down under a spare cabbage leaf to keep everything submerged. Left to sit somewhere cool and covered loosely for 2 weeks or more, tasted along the way every few days, then finally moved to the fridge once it's sour enough for your family's taste. That's it. That's the whole method, start to finish. And it's the very same method families have leaned on for hundreds of years, long before refrigerators existed, long before grocery stores lined their shelves with jars shipped in from who knows where. Back before any of that, putting up a full crock of kraut every fall was just simply what you did. So your family had vegetables through the long winter months when nothing was growing outside. It wasn't a trend back then, it was just how a kitchen stayed stocked. This weekend before Sunday supper, I want you to go pick out 1 good head of cabbage at the store. That's your only job for now. Don't even start the recipe yet if you're not ready to jump in fully. Just bring that cabbage home and set it right there on your counter. Somewhere you'll see it every time you walk through the kitchen. Let it sit there and remind you it's waiting. Then, whenever you've got 15 quiet minutes to yourself, start slicing and let the rest take care of itself over the following weeks. Now, I want to ask you something because I really do read every single answer down in the comments, every one of them. When you picture your own grandmother's kitchen growing up, was there a crock of something fermenting quietly on the counter or down in a cool corner somewhere? Or was that just never how your family did things? And if you go make this batch yourself, come back and tell me on what day it finally tasted sour enough for your family, because like I said, everybody's taste for tang lands in a different place, and I'm always curious to see where yours ends up compared to mine. Next time, I want to show you what my grandmother used to do with the leftover brine once a jar of kraut was finally empty, because believe it or not, that salty, sour liquid still has plenty of life left in it, and throwing it down the drain is a bit of a waste. But for now, just remember this one simple thing. Cabbage, salt, and thyme, packed tight and kept covered the whole way through, is the entire secret. And it's one your own family can keep making for pennies a jar, season after season, long after this video is over and forgotten.